And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Happy to be hanging out here with you where sports truly meets that thing called life here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We are here, as I said, in these wonderful Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. They are open for sales and service Monday through Saturday, and of course, they are always open online at greatlakeshondacity.com. There's never a bad time to look for your new vehicle or your first vehicle. And Great Lakes Honda City has so many different vehicles for you, whatever you need or your family needs, from the Accord to the Civic, the HRV, the CRV, the Pilot, the Ridgeline, and more. Find it all at Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York, and get a sneak peek of their inventory by going to greatlakeshondacity.com. We are up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.mixlr.com. Still on Podbean. Podbean just doesn't have their live feed anymore. It was something that they got rid of here in May 2026. So we still have over 2,000 episodes on Podbean. Podbean is a mainstay of the show from 2012 until right now, and hopefully continuing on and on and on from here. We just switched to internet streaming radio, which we used to be on MixLR, and now we're back on MixLR, as MixLR seems to have grown and updated and done some things. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that'll bring to the show, and definitely happy and proud to have you here. And for those of you that used to listen on MixLR, hopefully we can have you come right back into it, and of course bring some new people in as well. We thank you for being with us on internet streaming radio on mixlr.com /wakeupcall. Pardon me, mixlr.com /wakeupcalldt was the former way of saying it. It is now wakeupcalldt.mixlr.com. So we appreciate you for being with us on MixLR, and of course on internet streaming video and audio. You can find us on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /wakeupcalldt. So however you're tuned in up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe, thanks for hanging out with us here on Wake Up Call. I got a lot of things to get to. So last week when I was recovering from surgery, there were a lot of things that were going on. And I was just looking at the news, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many things I have to talk about. There's so many things I have opinions on and thoughts on, and things that we've discussed here on the show before, or maybe prognosticated that look like they're coming true. And so there was a lot of different pieces that I wanted to get to. And so we will. And over the next, this week and potentially next week, whatever the schedule, kind of ends up being here as we navigate through a lot of these big things that are going on. I did want to spend today kind of spending hour number one on one piece, hour number two on the second piece, but we'll see how they blend together and how the conversation flows. There was a bunch of things on my mind, but I'm like, let me just pick two topics for now, because I want to be able to let these topics breathe, because there's a lot of things to discuss. And the SEC and the Big Ten, I made a prediction years ago, many years ago. We're talking like around the beginning of COVID times. I had made a prediction about the SEC. When the SEC, around that COVID 2020 time period, which seems like, I don't know, it seems like fake now. Now in 2026, you look back to 2020 and you're like, did that year even happen? And it did. But when you look back to that time period, I had made a prediction back then. And I feel like that prediction is only been coming more and more true over these last 6 years. So let's go back to the prediction that I made. So I had stated back in around 2020 time, when we saw Oklahoma and Texas book it for the SEC leaving the Big 12, that is when this conversation started to happen with me. I spent some time thinking about it. One of my very close friends and I were discussing this, one of my mentors, and he said Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 for the SEC will affect everyone. Like, it's going to affect not just Division I, it'll trickle through, it'll affect Division II, and so on and so forth. And he was right, because it caused realignment shifts and a lot of things to happen all over the country. So here we are, right? We're here in the 2020 time period, and we see Oklahoma and Texas state that they're leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. Now, these just aren't two schools leaving. These are the two identifiers of the Big 12. They're the face of the Big 12, right? You look at just softball and how many championships the softball team for Oklahoma had won, and you say to yourself, them leaving, that's a national powerhouse program going from one conference to another. So I know people focus on football and they focus on men's basketball, but let's give the flowers where the flowers should be, and let's not forget teams and Oklahoma, what Oklahoma can bring to the table, what Texas can bring to the table when you look at that world of softball. So you don't just lose two teams in the Big 12, you lose the identifiers of the conference, which could have killed the conference. And I really truly believe there was a moment where the Big 12 could have been separated and could have honestly been erased from existence. Now, this prediction that I'm talking about, it is multi-layered, and that's why we're going to break it down today, and I wanted to let it, like I said, breathe and let it have its time, because there's a lot for me to say about this. When you look at the prediction that I made, Oklahoma and Texas leaving the SEC, I said, I believe that the SEC might break away and form its own league. Might just break away from the rest of the conferences in Division I for NCAA and do its own thing. Because look at what they have. Look at the product that they put on the fields and the courts and the tracks and so on and so forth of life. If you really honestly took a deep, hard look at what the SEC had and then gained with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, one would say to themselves that we're living in a world where this conference, who in the addition of Oklahoma and Texas is at 16, we're back to mega conferences, right? Between 16 and 20, I would call it a mega conference. It's a lot, right? There's a lot of schools within that. We have conferences now that have 18, have 16. And as we saw this move, I want to remind you of the products that are within the SEC when we look at the schools that are a part of the Southeastern Conference. Okay? When you look at this, you have Alabama, who's been a powerhouse in football. Nick Saban, almost nobody would beat him. I think they lose like 3 games in 5 years or something ridiculous. Arkansas, who had found its way back up in football, did some good things in basketball. Auburn, who's had some good moments, obviously, in basketball. Florida, who has shown that although their football program has been struggling, you look to their basketball program and say to yourself, okay, this is another school that's finding its way back up the mountain. Georgia won back-to-back national titles in football. Kentucky has been a good basketball team historically, not a good football team, but has gotten better at football. LSU has had moments of bliss, and obviously they have won a college football playoff national championship. Ole Miss with the Lane Train, everything that they did on arguably the best season that they've ever had at Ole Miss. And then you say, okay, Missouri's gotten better. Oklahoma and Texas coming into the conference, if we just strictly look at football, we see the fact that they struggled a little bit in the beginning, but they've both been on the rise. Oklahoma beat Alabama. You look at Mississippi State, who's been going through some change, and they're trying to elevate. South Carolina's had some good moments, but they're trying to elevate. Vanderbilt just had the coach of the year in football. Texas A&M has had some good and proud moments. And then you look at Tennessee, who's found their way back up, and they've been a team to beat at the beginning of the season and a top 10 nationally ranked team at times. So I'm giving you 16 institutions. And if we just look at football, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas, 5 of those teams all were in the top 10. And I think that Vanderbilt was kind of dancing with it, and Texas A&M as well. So that's 6, maybe 7. So you have 16 schools, and almost half of them had been ranked in the nation's top 10. Rightly so, right? Rightly so. Because sometimes these teams are ranked, and you're like, they just beat, some like candy shop, and somehow they got put higher in the rankings. So this conference, when you look at all of the pieces of it, plus Oklahoma and Texas, I said, I believe that the SEC was going to go and form its own league. I said the SEC may be on its way because, listen, let's go back to the word autonomy. The word power is a media term. That's why you very rarely hear me use it, because I don't go with the bouncing ball of the media. I go with logic, facts, predictions that hold weight. I don't just follow the bouncing ball of the media. I've never been that way. I've never been there's a bunch of people walking in this direction, so I'm going to go in that direction. I'm the type of person that's going to study the directions and make a decision, trust God and trust my gut. I'm not just going to walk where most people are walking. I think that's a dangerous thing to do. So I don't say power a lot. That's not something, sometimes if it helps people identify and you know what I'm talking about, but it's not the word of choice. My word of choice is autonomy, because autonomy is what the conferences actually are. Now, the autonomy group, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and in the beginning, the Pac-12, were all a part of the autonomy, right? So they tell the NCAA, we're going to stay with you, but we're self-governing within you. We're going to have our own set of rules, full cost of attendance. We're going to do all these things with recruiting and whatnot. We're going to abide by your rules, but we're going to have other stuff going on. And we're going to be with you. But what does autonomy mean? It means self-governing. Well, when these conferences got together and made a decision to talk to the NCAA and state that they are legally self-governing, why would they do that? Why would they put in writing that they're the autonomy group? Unless there was a plan in place of one day taking their island amidst this country and moving it away. Okay? It's kind of like they're Hawaii. They're like, we'll be a state, but we're out here by ourselves. But it's almost like if Hawaii told America, we'll be your 50th state for now. And that is where things have been at. And I sat down with John Squafford, who was the ACC commissioner at the time, and we were at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn for the ACC tournament. And I talked with John a bunch of times, and I always appreciate it. And I thank Amy Acola and the ACC for helping to make those conversations possible, because I know John's a busy man. And I know Jim is now, and Jim Phillips, and very close with Jim as well. Appreciate Jim and all his kind words over the years, and right back at you to Mr. Jim Phillips. When I sat with John Swafford, I said to him, you have the autonomy group. You are autonomous. That is the legal term that you chose as these 5 conferences. And when I addressed that with him, I said, does that mean that, you chose, I'm the son of a lawyer. So I'm looking at why you choose the words you choose, right? Because especially when you're putting it into a contract, into something binding, into an agreement. Why did these 5 conferences come together, and why did they choose autonomy? So I said to John Swafford, I said, autonomy means self-governing. By the fact that you chose that word, are you telling the NCAA that at one point you will leave? That these conferences will go and do their own thing? And he said, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but not right now. It's not that they haven't, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. He said, it's not that we haven't discussed it, but now's not the time. And that was over a decade ago. So you look at the fact that seemingly out of nowhere, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12 all get together and tell the NCAA, we're autonomous. Then the SEC goes and takes the top 2 programs from the Big 12. So I said, you're already autonomous, you're already self-governing, you already have a ton of money, you've already won national championships, you already have some of the most prosperous institutions in the nation in Division I athletics, and now you just took Oklahoma and Texas, which can help you in multiple sports, not just football. So I stated that I believed, and this was around COVID time, I said, I believe that the SEC, after the move of taking Oklahoma and Texas, that they would potentially become their own league. And when this news broke in 2021, they were trying to figure out how they could get them there quicker. So, like I said, around COVID time, right? So 2021, I talk about the SEC is already part of the autonomy group. They're already self-governing. Now they have these 2 teams. Now they have 16, or 2 schools, and now they have 16. I believe at some point the SEC might go and form its own because, listen, the SEC's got their own network. The SEC makes a ton of money. The SEC dictates a lot of things. I don't think and this is my opinion, I don't think the SEC is sitting at a table with a TV network and the TV network is running the conversation. I think the SEC is telling them where it's going to be because the SEC has been the powerhouse of all the conferences, right? They've been at the top. So my prediction is I feel like they have the money. They can get the revenue. They have the backing. They have the boosters. They have the championships. They have the notoriety and the names. I think the SEC might one day go be its own thing. And then the Big Ten went and took USC and UCLA from the Pac-12. And you look at the Big Ten and you think of the Big Ten as a Midwest conference. But now they're taking 2 West Coast teams. And I paid attention to it. And then they took Oregon and Washington. And after they took those 4, the Big 12 that could have died, and there was an article that I wrote where the American could have gone after 3 Big 12 teams because the American had moved their headquarters during COVID to Texas from Rhode Island. And so now here they are in Irving, Texas. They already have teams in Texas. And so I said the American could snatch 3 of these teams, have more Texas representation. And then there was a world where the Pac-12 would gain some of the Big 12 teams. And then West Virginia would go and join Pitt and Syracuse, old rivals in the ACC. And then that would provoke Maryland to return to the ACC from the Big Ten, which I don't think the Big Ten would miss them. And then the Big Ten would gain Iowa State for the Iowa-Iowa State rivalry and put it in conference, and then the Big 12 would be dead. Well, the Big 12 got to things first, had better conversations, better network. They did something to make the dominoes fall their way because instead of the American poaching them, they poached the American, and they also poached the Pac-12. And they almost murdered the Pac-12. They almost killed the whole thing because the Pac-12 was left with Oregon State and Washington State, and that was it. And the Big Ten started that demise. Now, the thing with the Big Ten was the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC had this joint alliance. And I think about it to this day of, was the joint alliance just a way to get a little bit closer to the Pac-12 and the ACC to see who they could take? Because they formed this joint alliance, and then they snatched 4 teams from the Pac-12 and started the beginning of the potential end of the Pac-12, which we know the Pac-12 is still alive now. But the Pac-12 functioned for 2 years with 2 teams because the NCAA provided them a waiver, gave them some time to get their membership back up so that they could remain a Division I conference. So when the Big Ten took those 4 teams from the West Coast, I looked at a map, and you could go back and watch that video on YouTube. I put a map up of realignment, of what was happening, of where conferences had footprints, and on what I predicted would happen next. Well, if you look at the Big Ten has the Northeast, the Midwest, and the West Coast. The SEC has the Southeast and the South Middle. So if you looked at an actual map of the United States and you put the Big 12, or pardon me, the Big 10 and the SEC together, they account for most of the nation: Northeast, Midwest, Southeast, South Middle, West Coast, except for a strip of Idaho, Arizona, Wyoming, Montana, which weren't going to affect the argument that I was going to make, which was the Big Ten sees that the SEC is moving closer and closer to breaking away. The Big Ten went and got these West Coast schools to become enticing to the SEC, to say to the SEC, whatever you're thinking of doing, you and I are both autonomous. We both have told the NCAA years ago that we are self-governing. When you decide to go and break away, we will go with you. And if the SEC said, why should you go with us? The Big Ten turns around and says, we just signed an $8 billion TV contract. We just added 4 West Coast schools. And look at what we have now. We have Penn State, Michigan, right? Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State, but now we have Oregon, who has been in the college football playoff. We have Washington, who's been in the college football playoff. We have the historic programs of UCLA, especially in men's basketball with John Wooden. We have USC, which has had historical success in football. So if you let us come with you, we have almost the entire country, coast to coast, north to south. And we have 18 schools, you have 16. So we're going to put these 34 together, and with 30 plus schools, we can create our own league. Look at the amount of money we have. Look at the name identifiers that we have, the logos that people have as commonplace household logos. Look at the championships we've won between our conferences. And then the Big Ten turns around and starts winning college football playoffs instead of the SEC. And then Michigan rises up with Dusty May, the former head coach of FAU that made history with that men's basketball program. And now they say, look at us in men's basketball, look at us in football, the 2 biggest revenue generators in collegiate athletics. Look at how good we are. We're beating your teams, SEC. We've won more championships in the college football playoff in the last 3 years than you have. So now the argument that was made in the early 2020s is now substantiated even more, on top of the money, on top of the name identifiers and the historical programs that they have, that they've been winning championships and vying for championships in the biggest revenue generators in the country when it comes to athletics, in football and men's basketball. So my prediction in the early 2020s was the SEC would break away from the NCAA. Then I said, after the Big Ten took those 4 West Coast schools, that I believe the Big Ten is working with the SEC to potentially break away. Now let's fast forward to 2026. What have the SEC and the Big Ten done most recently this week? Not only did they take a stand against something nationally, but they put out a joint statement, which to me even furthers my prediction of the early 2020s, years ago, that these 2 conferences are working together. Because if they weren't working together, why would they? If you're not working together, why are you putting out a joint statement? The Big Ten could have said, this is where we stand. Now, normally when a conference states where they stand, they will say, this is where we're at. And another conference will say, well, this is where we're at. And so on and so forth. But how many times have you seen historically that 2 conferences will get together and put out a joint statement and state, instead of saying this is where we are, and you look at one conference and then you look at another conference and you say, okay, well, this conference and that conference agree. They're in line, right? You look at all the conferences. If we look the FBS, for example, Division I football, right? If we look at the FBS Division 1A, there's 10 FBS conferences. and let's say Congress passes something and each of the conferences puts out a statement. How many times have you seen the MAC put out a joint statement with the Sun Belt, or the American put out a joint statement with Conference USA, or the ACC put out a joint statement with the Big 12? Now, we've seen alliances. We've seen the joint alliances as a response to what the SEC was doing. But how many times have you seen conferences, especially of this magnitude, when you don't really see it at all, to see the two biggest money generator and championship generator conferences put out a joint statement about a national collegiate athletic issue? So that prediction that I made, tell me it's not true when you have an identical statement with the Big Ten and the SEC not saying, here's what our commissioner said, and here's what our commissioner said, and then we both read them, and we read them both, and we say to ourselves, oh, okay, they're in line with each other. They agree with each other. We make the inference. There's no inference here. This is a joint statement where these two conferences, these two heads of the conferences, these commissioners approved to put this out and say, yeah, we're the Big Ten, but we're going to mention the SEC in our statement. Yeah, we're the SEC, but we're going to mention the Big Ten. We're going to agree on the verbiage of everything that we say, and then we're going to release it together. Tell me they're not working together. Tell me there's not a plan in place. Tell me my prediction of 4 or 5 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years. At this point, it's got to be at least 4. But tell me that prediction that started in 2021 with the SEC and my belief that they were going to break away, that expanded into the Big Ten breaking away with them with the addition of those 4 West Coast schools. Tell me that right now in 2026, you're not seeing it. The joint statement that they put out on the Protect College Sports Act. Now, keep in mind, the American came out publicly and supported the College Sports Act. The American said, yeah, we appreciate this being put out. So you've already seen conferences make decisions to put out information to say how they feel about things. So that should make you sit here and go, okay, well, conference, we already saw the American within the last week say the Protect College Sports Act is something that they were getting behind. And then Jim Phillips of the ACC, who is part of the autonomy group that includes the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12, he put out a statement that said, we appreciate Senator Cruz and Senator Cantwell working together in a bipartisan manner to sponsor the Protect College Sports Act. We look forward to reviewing the proposed legislation and working collaboratively with our elected officials, constituents, and most importantly, our student athletes to provide stability to college athletics. The ACC will remain active in our efforts to preserve the athletic and academic opportunities for the next generation of student athletes and build upon today's positive momentum. That is a positive message to the Protect College Sports Act. Now, Jim Phillips said that the ACC looks forward to reviewing the proposed legislation and working collaboratively, but they did not stand against it in any part of that statement. Now I'll read you the statement that came from the Big Ten and the SEC this week. A joint statement on the Protect College Sports Act. The Big Ten Conference and the Southeastern Conference support a sustainable national framework for college sports, one with an effective transfer portal, clear eligibility standards, and protections and benefits for student athletes. While we appreciate the leadership of Senators Cruz and Cantwell in pursuing these shared goals, we do not support the College Sports Act as drafted. That is very different wording than we saw from the ACC, who is also part of the autonomy group. And also different than we saw from the American, who has worked to show their place and to not be considered a quote-unquote non-power. So I want you to really hear these words, because here we are living in a world where the autonomy group is putting out their thoughts on the Protect College Sports Act, which is supposed to give us some framework on the sustainability and growth of the world of student athletes. to put a fence around some of this stuff, hopefully. And you have the ACC appreciating the work of the Senators and collaboratively working with them, whereas you have the Big Ten and the SEC saying, we do not support the College Sports Act as it's been drafted. The first conferences to publicly say to us, we don't support this. Now, as I look back on the Big 12, the other member of the autonomy group that now does not include the PAC anymore after the PAC dwindled down to 2 schools within the last few years here. The Big 12, as far as making a statement, this is going to be interesting because they have not publicly put out a statement that I'm seeing here. So I have not seen anything come out from the Big 12, and I'm looking at it in the studio right now just to make sure that I didn't miss something. But let's go on with what the SEC and the Big Ten had to say. The bill, speaking of the Protect College Sports Act, the bill leaves critical issues unresolved. It does not meaningfully preempt the patchwork of state laws or provide the protections needed to make and enforce consistent rules, both essential to long-term stability in college athletics. It also shifts ongoing rulemaking to Congress, limiting the ability to adapt quickly as the landscape evolves. I read that as, we don't want anybody else making decisions for us except for our conferences. They went on to say, rather than reducing litigation, the bill likely expands it without offering clear alternatives for dispute resolution. Finally, the bill alters the House settlement revenue sharing framework in a way that may result in fewer student-athletes receiving direct revenue share payments. So now they're saying, hey, you know that settlement that we signed with the NCAA, that the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC signed? We think the Protect College Sports Act is going to affect that settlement. Speaking of the Big 10 and the SEC. They said, we are committing to working with Senators Cruz and Cantwell and other members of Congress to improve this legislation so that it can provide lasting stability for college athletics. So basically, as a person who's read many emails that have either said, yes, we're good to go, or thank you for thinking of us, but we're not interested at this time, I can tell you that the ACC felt more like, yeah, we're in good shape of partnering up and moving forward, but we feel... I read the ACC as, we like where you're going, let's keep working on it, but there's promise here, there's potential here. I read the SEC and the Big Ten's joint statement as, we appreciate your efforts, but we're not interested at this time in what you have to bring to us. Bring us something else, right? And so I think we're seeing in real time a divide of the autonomy group. There's only 4 conferences in the autonomy group, but you do not see a joint statement agreed upon by the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. You saw a joint statement from half of the autonomy group that just so happens to be the half, the SEC and the Big Ten, that I have predicted for years is going to potentially go and form its own thing separate from the ACC, separate from the Big 12, and potentially separate from collegiate athletics as we know it today. And putting out this joint statement, no matter what they said, tells something to me. The SEC and the Big 10 are working together. Now, conferences can come and sit down and work hand in hand with one another, right? To agree upon certain things, to enact certain things, bring things into existence, take things away. But again, how many times do you see a public connection like this between 2 conferences? Now, I did find something from the Big 12, so from Commissioner Brett Yormark, so I want to make sure that I read this, because I didn't think they had released anything, but back on May 27th, I was able to find that the commissioner of the Big 12 said this, quote, on behalf of the Big 12 Conference, we thank Chairman Ted Cruz and Ranking Member Maria Cantwell for their leadership and efforts to address the challenges facing college athletics. We look forward to reviewing the legislation and providing constructive feedback as part of the process and remain committed to empowering student athletes while helping build a sustainable future for college sports. So we hear words in here that seem to be very similar to the words we're getting from the ACC. So the Big 12 says, hey, we appreciate the efforts of Cruz and Cantwell, and we're going to work with you to figure this out. And we hear from the Big 10 and the SEC, we don't support the Protect College Sports Act as drafted. Now, they did put as drafted, which says it's not dead in the water, but they are the only two conferences of the autonomy group to say publicly, we do not support this act. But they said as drafted. If they said we do not support this act, I think, and listen, there's people that have to look at this, right? You got lawyers, you got a team, you got PR people that are looking at every word you use. Because if you said we do not support the Protect College Sports Act, then the other conferences could go, oh, they don't care about student athletes. Look, they don't want to protect you. But they put as drafted, which means, hey, we're not completely against the Protect College Sports Act. We just don't like the way that it's written right now. But they didn't talk about being committed to working with Cruz and Cantwell until the end. They held that until the end. And in the middle of this statement by the SEC and the Big Ten, they talked about the things they don't think this bill has. They publicly said, here are the areas we feel like are missing. The bill leaves critical issues unresolved. It does not meaningfully preempt the patchwork of state laws or provide the protections needed to make and enforce consistent rules. So, when we look at that, you have to look at the words that they use. To preempt means to take action to prevent an anticipated event from happening, or to secure something for yourself before something else can. So when they say that, we're not protecting the patchwork of state laws. So we're not meaningful, we're not preempting that, right? We're not taking action to prevent an anticipated event when it comes to state laws. Or providing protections needed to make and enforce consistent rules. And I've been sitting here thinking to myself the whole time, how does the NCAA make a decision for states when states have state laws? How did the NCAA during COVID force every one of the 50 states to agree to name, image, and likeness when most states were not ready, did not have legislation, or maybe didn't support it? At the time that I was reading through things in 2020, of the 50 states, 9 states seemingly had some type of plan in place, with 41 states not. And the NCAA said, doesn't matter, y'all got to do it. How did that not break state law? How is the NCAA not in court right now going up against the 50 states? Or at least the states that were like, hey, we weren't ready for this. So I've been thinking about this whole time. Now, I'm not wishing bad on the NCAA. I'm just asking a question. If states have state laws and the NCAA circumnavigated those state laws, is the NCAA the national government? And isn't there certain places where the national government has to keep their nose out of states because states are allowed to make certain laws? There's no point in having state government or local government if the national government does not allow states to make certain decisions for themselves within certain areas. And are not some of these schools private institutions, not public? So I'm looking at all these things saying to myself, how did you circumnavigate all of this to make your own decisions and then force it upon? Could you legally do what you did? And if you can't, then how is that not being brought to court? And then the Big Ten and the SEC talked about shifting ongoing rulemaking to Congress. I've talked to a bunch of commissioners that want Congress to make the rules. They want Congress to take the reins. The SEC and the Big Ten seemingly here are saying, hey, we don't want to give more power to Congress. We don't want to give more power to the national government because it limits the ability to adapt quickly as the landscape evolves. Because think about how long Congress takes. And think about it like this. If a bill gets put on the congressional floor and a bunch of Democrats agree with it and it makes perfect sense, the Republicans may disagree with it just because they don't like Democrats. And if the Republicans have a bill that they like that makes perfect sense, the Democrats may not agree with it because they're Democrats. So I can see the SEC and the Big Ten saying, hey, do we want to give more power to Congress when Congress might make decisions just based on party and not based on sensible things? They may not be caring about the student athletes as much as we are, but I also think that they're also saying in this joint statement, we want to be able to make our own decisions. And I just have a feeling, call it a hunch, that the SEC and the Big Ten are like, we don't really want anybody else snooping around our decisions. We want to function autonomously because they are part of the autonomy group. And they talked about, instead of reducing litigation, this bill would expand it without offering clear alternatives for dispute resolution. The bill alters the House settlement revenue sharing framework in a way that may result in fewer student athletes receiving direct revenue share. Now, again, direct revenue share, I thought we weren't pay for play. I thought student athletes were never supposed to make direct money for simply being athletes. So I think there's a lot of things reading between the lines of this statement, not even reading between the lines, but just looking at the words and thinking about it a little bit more than simply reading it, that the Big Ten and the SEC are saying, we're not down with this, but the SEC and the Big Ten are in a place right now where, again, they're the conferences that sign the biggest TV contracts. They're the conferences that are making the most money. They're the conferences that are winning the championships. So the Big Ten and the SEC lead all NCAA Division I conferences, allegedly generating over $1.1 billion apiece annually. So they're not generating hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're not generating millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. They're generating the billion per year. As I'm looking at it this morning, if you look at the autonomy group, the Big Ten, total revenue, $1.47 billion. Average school payment, $79.9 million. First full year with 18 members and a new multi-billion-dollar TV contracts. The SEC second with $1.11 billion. Average school payment, $72.4 million. Debuted their new ESPN ABC television deal in 2024. The ACC is third with $826.5 million. Their full share payment to their schools on average, $47.1 million. After adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU and expanding the ACC network. Keep in mind, SMU, in joining the ACC, said that they would not take any piece of the TV pie, that they wouldn't be taking that revenue sharing of the school payout money for the first 10 years, that they're relying on their donors and their community. So they don't really they cost the ACC less. And I mean, that's a win. If SMU can continue to generate money from their donors and supporters, then SMU is going to be fully functioning within the ACC without costing the ACC more money. So seems like a win for the ACC there, and SMU automatically, or like immediately, was effective. They played for an ACC championship and were a field goal away in their first year in the ACC. And in their second year, they were one game out of playing for back-to-back ACC title games. And they've already been in the college football playoff as a member of the ACC. The Big 12 of the autonomy group is fourth in total revenue with $610.9 million. The full share average school payout, $39.5 million. They realigned with new additions. But The question is where they're going to go in their media rights. So look at that. The Big Ten and the SEC, both over $1 billion in total revenue, and the average school payout over $72 million for both conferences, for each school on average. The ACC is almost $30 million behind in average school payout. They are almost $30 million behind. The Big 12 is over $30 million behind the SEC in average school payout. So we are seeing a clear line. I mean, think about it this way. If you add the average school payout in a full share between the ACC and the Big 12 on the numbers I just gave you, if you add those together, it is around $87 million. If you add the ACC and the Big 12 together, the Big 10 is almost $80 million by itself in average school payout. So the Big 10 is doing by itself what the ACC and the Big 12 are doing together, plus a little more on their end because it's over $80 million. But think about that. It takes the ACC and the Big 12 combined to get to $80 million plus per school, and the Big 10's doing around $80 million per school on average payout by itself. There is a clear divide in revenue generating for these schools. The Big 10 and the SEC making over $1 billion apiece in a year and paying their schools over $72 million in an average school payout. And you got the Big 12 at $610 million to the billion plus for the SEC and the Big 10. And you got the ACC trailing the SEC by over $100 million. So when I talked to you about the prediction that I made years ago, that was before these numbers came in. That was before the joint statement that was made this week by the SEC and the Big Ten. So tell me that what I saw years ago, starting in 2021, has not 5 years later looked even more and more clear. Where are we heading? Because there's been the conversation of there's going to be like 60 schools that are going to go and separate themselves. And those 60 schools are going to all be part of a new league. And they're going to be made up of the autonomy group conferences. And some of those schools are going to be left by the wayside. Well, if you look at the Big 12, they have 16, right? The ACC has 18 because they have Notre Dame for everything but football. So let's just talk about overall. So they have Notre Dame as a full member sans football. So let's say 18 for the ACC, right? 18 for the Big 10. So that's 36. And then you have 16 for the Big 12, and you have 16 for the SEC. So that's 32. 32 and 36 gives you 68. If they were to take 60, who drops off? Syracuse, Rutgers, Maryland, Pitt, BC. And in my argument, if these conferences tell schools to get away, like go leave, will we see a return of Big East football? I think it's a real genuine possibility that we could see the return of Big East, Northeast football. I do. So, again, the Protect College Sports Act. And what have you heard? And again, and think about what I've been doing for years. The Commissioner Corner is a segment I created on Wake Up Call to be a show within my show that speaks with the leaders of conferences and leagues all across NCAA Division I athletics, coast to coast, north to south, speaks with commissioners, leaders all across the country about the things that are affecting all of these conferences and leagues. I have spoken with them about similar topics I've spoken to them about topics that are affecting them all. Commissioner Corner, everything that it was and what it's become, think about it. There is no better time to have Commissioner Corner than right now to hear what the leaders of these conferences and leagues have to say about the things that are affecting them all. The settlements that are happening with the NCAA, what's going on with revenue sharing, NIL, the transfer portal, eligibility, right? All of these things are affecting all of the conferences and leagues. So what better time to hear from the commissioners and executive directors than right now? And not only hearing from them about national topics affecting them all, but also hearing about their identity for their specific conference. And what have these commissioners been talking with me about? The SAVE Act, right? When you talk about the NCAA, the Protect College Sports Act is what we have going on right now. But there was another one before that was trying to save college sports. So there have now been multiple iterations of some type of bill that can protect the sanctity of what collegiate athletics are supposed to be. They're supposed to include the student. If we sheerly are having employees on these teams, it's no longer college. There's no longer education. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If you break away the student from student athlete, these schools are not going to be able to function. Because think about the amount of enrollment that comes from the student athletes. Your logo of your school, of your teams that compete, that logo is the identifier of your entire school. Yeah, Syracuse can write Syracuse across a sweatshirt, and some people might buy it, but the block S, that's what you're going to buy more of than simply just buying the Syracuse written out. The doorstep, the welcome mat of colleges and universities are their athletic departments, whether people want to admit it or not. Right? If you don't have a team to cheer for, think about it. If you had no teams to cheer for, no games to go to, what is your college experience like? It's not the same. Now, yes, there's the Ivy League and the Patriot League, and there's places where education is paramount still. You got a public Ivy League school in Binghamton University here in the state of New York. There are places where it doesn't have to all be about sports, and I'm not saying it's all about sports. But when you talk about revenue generating and enrollment generating, you take student out of student athlete, what's going to happen in these schools? I would argue that the schools aren't going to be able to stay open. Because if you have separate contracts with these athletes and they're no longer student athletes, they're just athletes, and they don't have to go to school and it's nothing to do with education, which is things that we feel like have been happening for a long time now, and this just haven't been put out there publicly, that are these kids actually going to class? Are they actually studying? Are they getting a degree? Are they getting a degree of merit in something where they can actually get a job? When you look at what we believe has been happening, which is people not going to class and people not finishing their semesters and focusing sheerly on sports but not on academics, if we continue to move in the direction we're moving into, this isn't going to be something we believe is happening, that we have no certification is happening everywhere. There's no official public stamp. It's just what we believe is happening by following the bouncing ball. This would be saying, no, let's put a spotlight on it. They don't have to be students. They literally are going to be treated differently. They're already treated like kings and queens on some campuses, but now they don't even have to do anything else. Just practice. And think about it. With the SEC and the Big Ten, with the amount of money that they make and the contracts that they have and the championships they won, do you think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be mad if there was some type of ruling that states all these kids have to do is practice, watch film, and play? You think they're going to be mad about that? They're going to say, hey, that'll make us even better. So, and I'm not trying to say the SEC and the Big Ten don't care about academics. I'm not saying that every single teacher and every single coach and every student athlete doesn't care about their education. I'm not saying that. I'm saying look at where we are right now. Look at the conferences at the top of that. And if you told those conferences you can hire and fire your players, you can, take the NIL money back if this guy isn't who you thought he was or that girl isn't who you thought she was, and they don't have to worry about going to class, and you could just play and play and play. Well, now you can expand seasons and do all this other stuff that's already happening. How many times do you hear people talk about education when they talk about collegiate athletics? On this show, I do. The Commissioner Corner has been one of the greatest things that I thank God for putting in my brain and helping me to create, because I look at it today and I say it's never been needed more than right now. And if you go to wakeupcalldt.com and you go simply to our homepage, you don't even have to go anywhere on the website. If you go to wakeupcalldt.com right now, I updated the site with the videos here, and it says subscribe on YouTube for national content, and then you can click to subscribe. And right there, you have my conversation in the Commissioner Corner with Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez. You have Patriot League Commissioner Jennifer Heppel. You have MAC Commissioner Dr. John Steinbrecher. You have Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistersill. You have the Summit League Commissioner Josh Fenton. You have the Atlantic Sun, which is now bonding with the WAC, which is now going to become the UAC. And the UAC and the Atlantic Sun are going to be overseen by Unison Sports. And the leader of the Atlantic Sun that I spoke with, that is now being a part of this transition into something that we've really never seen truly like this in athletics, that commissioner and I had the conversation that I think is going to lead to a lot more conversations, that being Jeff Bacon. And then I spoke with 17-plus year commissioner of the A10, who is retiring now and moving forward into the next chapter of her life, but she's been a huge part of the A10 and its sustainability, in Bernadette McGlade. Those are all on wakeupcalldt.com. So if you want to know in the here and now, in real time, how commissioners are reacting to things that are going on within their conferences and then across the entire country in national collegiate athletics, you have multiple examples to go and watch right now. You have 7 broadcasts to watch in Commissioner Corner on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And there will be more to come by the grace of God. I pray and I hope and I believe. So they're talking to me about the SAVE Act. They're talking to me, we need to do something to protect collegiate athletics. We have to. But again, the Big 12 put out a statement as an autonomy member with 3 other conferences. They put out an individual conference Big 12 statement. The ACC put out an individual ACC conference statement. The SEC and the Big 10 met with each other and put out a joint, exactly the same conference statement. They have made a statement. It's becoming, what was in the shadows is coming to the light. My prediction in 2021, coming to the light. The SEC and the Big 10 are not hiding that they are working with one another. What did they say about the college football playoff? About expansion. What did they say is allegedly happening behind closed doors? That the SEC and the Big 10 cannot agree on what the expanded format should look like. It doesn't talk about the ACC. It doesn't talk about the Big 12. It says the SEC and the Big 10. And I was also told that when you're sitting in a room and you have representation of conferences and leagues of Division I athletics across the country, it's all well and good what those conferences are talking about, but they look to the SEC and the Big 10. Who do you think is holding up the college football playoff expansion? In 2026-27, the college football playoff is remaining at 12 teams for the 3rd year in a row. And I told you that my belief, and I spoke with the executive director of the College Football Playoff Committee, Rich Clark, on the show, who also uses autonomy instead of power, and he calls them the A4, not the P4, when speaking of the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC. We talked about expansion, and he said it's 12. I think he said 12, 16, 24. Those are our options. Those are the options of us moving forward. But then what happened? And he told me He told me like within 3 days of our conversation, he said it right on camera. You can go back on YouTube and watch it. YouTube.com/wakeupcalldt. Go to my college football playoff playlist on my YouTube channel. You can see my conversation with Rich Clark that was had the day after the national championship that happened in Miami, Florida, where Indiana beat Miami in Miami. That conversation was held on the grounds of Miami, Florida, right after the handoff of Miami to Las Vegas for the upcoming college football playoff national championship press conference. He told me, we're going to figure this out and we got to make a decision, and we will make a decision within the next few days. And they made a decision within the next few days. And they said for 26-27, we're keeping everything the same. And I said immediately in reaction to that, that is just telling you they're buying themselves another year to go back to the table to figure this thing out. But allegedly behind closed doors, the SEC and the Big Ten cannot agree on the format of expansion, that there will be expansion. But who are they saying are holding it up? Not the autonomy group, not this conference and that conference within the FBS, the SEC and the Big Ten. They have to figure it out. What is another thing that allegedly came up? They said there may be 2 byes in the college football playoff every single year. Only 2 byes. Only 2 teams in the whole college football playoff would have a bye, an immediate move from the first round into the next round without having to play a game. And allegedly, one of the formats was that the SEC and the Big Ten would have those every year. Think about that. If you're the ACC or the Big 12 or the American or Conference USA or the MAC or so on and so forth, if you're in the FBS and they told you every college football playoff cycle, the SEC and the Big Ten champions will always have the bye week. They'll always automatically advance through the first round, no matter what the record is. So what if Clemson goes 12-0 and Alabama goes 9-3? Alabama's still going to get the bye. What if Ohio State plays no ranked teams except for one? And Baylor goes 11-1 and plays 5 ranked teams. Ohio State still gets the bye week over Baylor. Think about that. Think about if the college football playoff agreed to create a format that promoted the SEC and the Big Ten, regardless of record, regardless of teams that they played, who's ranked, who's not ranked, regardless of strength of schedule, every single year they gave the SEC and the Big Ten a perk that nobody else gets. Who the hell would sign that? Who of the 8 other conferences in the FBS would sign that deal? And then think about the men's basketball Division I NCAA tournament. The SEC has 16 schools, and they talk about taking 9, 10, 11 of the 16 schools, taking teams that are 18 and 13, taking teams that haven't cracked 20 wins, teams that are almost 500. Think about the Big Ten. They're going to take 8, 9, 10 of those 18 schools, half of the Big Ten, half of the SEC every year. Think about that. Now you're expanding to 76 this upcoming season for 26-27 for men's and women's basketball in D1. But think about the current format of 68. If you have 68 and you have over 30 conferences, okay, you have 35 plus at-large bids. 30, because there's 31, 32 conferences, right? There's been 32 conferences. I think right now there's 31. So you have 31 champions that get automatic bids, right? So 31 into 68 leaves you 37 at large. If the SEC gets 10 of their 16, that means 9 are at large. If the Big Ten gets 10 out of their 18, that means 9 are at large. You put those together, that's 18 of the 37 at large bids. That means there's 19 left for the entire country for 30 other conferences, almost 30 other conferences. So you're going to say the SEC and the Big Ten is going to count for half of the nation's at-large bids already? Tell me the NCAA is not pandering to the SEC and the Big Ten right now by how many bids they get in the NCAA tournament. Tell me the college football playoff isn't pandering to the SEC and the Big Ten based on how many seeds they get in the college football playoff currently in the 12-team format and where they're seeded. My prediction that the SEC would leave, and then I updated to the SEC and the Big Ten would leave years ago, making that prediction saying, I believe this is coming down the pipeline. Tell me it's not true. Why would the NCAA and the college football playoff be pandering more to the SEC and the Big Ten than any other conferences in America? Well, you say, well, Dan, because they have the best teams. And I'm not going to argue with you that in the college football playoff, they've had the best teams. But I'm sorry, did Miami make the national championship? Is Miami in the ACC? I'm just checking. And the Big East is given 2-3 spots in the men's Division I NCAA tournament. And how many championships is Dan Hurley winning? And how many times are they vying for a title for UConn out of the Big East? And how many times has the ACC been screwed in the amount of bids that they get in the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament? And how many times have they responded better than the Big Ten, who had double the amount of schools that the ACC had? And the SEC wasn't good in basketball until recently. The SEC had a couple schools that were maybe okay. But Arkansas wasn't good. Alabama wasn't good. Tennessee wasn't good. They were good in women's basketball, but not in men's. So look at the amount of bids that have been coming since COVID, since the SEC and the Big Ten expanded. Look at the amount of bids they get in the NCAA Division I tournament. Tell me there's not correlation with these schools seemingly looking like they are moving more and more into being their own thing. Tell me that the NCAA is not pandering toward them. Tell me the college football playoff is not pandering toward them. If you expand the college football playoff and you just put more SEC and Big Ten schools in there, then you're not expanding the college football playoff. You're expanding the SEC Big Ten challenge. If you expand from 68 to 76 for the men's Division I NCAA tournament, and you just put almost the entire SEC and Big Ten conferences in there, you're not expanding the NCAA tournament. You're expanding the SEC Big Ten challenge. And why would they continue to look at what they can do to support these two conferences more than anybody else? Why are they getting special treatment? Because the NCAA knows that the SEC and the Big Ten hold the cards. And if the SEC and the Big Ten, some people said the SEC and the Big Ten would never leave the NCAA because of the legislative stuff and the things with schools and this, that, and the third. Because there's certain perks and advantages and whatnot of being part of the NCAA. And I'm sure that the framework of collegiate athletics is supposed to support and help all of these conferences. But the SEC has their own network. The Big Ten has their own network. The SEC has a TV contract, and the Big Ten has a TV contract that are making more money than any other conference in America. And combined, they're winning consistent championships. Be it softball, baseball, basketball, football. We're living in a world where the SEC and the Big Ten are calling the bluff of the NCAA. When they're sitting there holding cards at a table and they're playing poker, they're calling the NCAA, demanding that they show their hand. If you think the SEC and the Big Ten are not calling the shots and that they're still owned by the NCAA and told what to do and how to do it, my belief is the SEC and the Big Ten are on islands in the middle of an ocean where they tell the NCAA, we're with you, but they're also kind of functioning on their own private island. And I told you years ago that we're living in a world where the SEC and the Big Ten could break away at some point. Now they got joint statements together. They're making the most money. And when they look at the ACC and the Big 12 in the autonomy group, the ACC and the Big 12 are not even holding a candle to what the Big 10 and the SEC can offer monetarily. And they say it always leads back to money. Well, if all trails lead back to money, the SEC and the Big 10 are the place for these institutions to go, for these student athletes to go. And if we're pandering toward these conferences, any decision that's being made to protect college athletics or to have a settlement or NIL or the transfer portal, they will always have a seat at the table. And it doesn't sound like we need a bunch of conferences and leagues to agree in Division I. It sounds like no matter what we agree or disagree on as almost 30 conferences, we have to look down the table to the SEC and the Big Ten and say, we're all in agreement. We're all in lockstep. The 20 plus of us are all together on this. What do you guys think? It seems like in today's collegiate athletic model, it all comes down to if everyone agrees but the SEC and the Big Ten, it's not happening. If nobody wants it but the SEC and the Big Ten, it might still happen. So we'll see where it goes from here. But the joint statement they just put out together, even more so, is telling me something. Because the ACC and the Big 12 didn't put out a statement together. And the autonomy group didn't put out a statement together. And the SEC was functioning alone, and the Big Ten was functioning alone. But now all of a sudden, they're functioning in a joint world. What I thought was happening in the background is coming more to the foreground. And if they're comfortable to not work in the shadows together, but to work publicly in front of you together, what do they say? If they're willing to do it in front of your face, it's always worse behind your back. Well, if they were doing things behind the scenes that I was predicting, that maybe you didn't believe, now you're seeing it in public. They say the writing's on the wall. Well, the Big Ten and the SEC didn't put it on a wall in a cave and hope you never found it. They plastered it on billboards and put a spotlight on it themselves and said, look at it. What are you going to do about it? My belief is that I don't know how you can get your arms around these two conferences, because what can the ACC or the Big 12 say to their members of the autonomy group? What power do the ACC and the Big 12 have over the SEC and the Big 10? What power does the NCAA have over the SEC and the Big 10? What power does the rest of the FBS have over the SEC and the Big 10? Because when push comes to shove, the NCAA tournament doesn't want to lose these conferences. And the college football playoff, if they lost these conferences, how do they even have a college football playoff? We're living in a world where Division I athletics is dividing. And it seems like only two conferences have full control of where they're going. It is crucial to find some type of leadership that can oversee and hold accountable every conference. But if the power and the money lies within the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't know if we're too far gone of wrapping our arms around these conferences. I don't know if the parent NCAA is going to get these two kids to truly listen. We may have gone beyond. And how many more perks and special treatment things can the NCAA and the college football playoff do for the SEC and the Big Ten? At what point do the SEC and the Big Ten not just turn around and say, you need us more than we need you? I mean, you really think the college football playoff would let go of the SEC and the Big Ten? You really think the NCAA would want to see March Madness without the SEC and the Big Ten? If I'm the commissioner of either one of these conferences, if I'm sitting in that seat, it's not an if, it's a when I want to make a decision. When I want to hold your feet to the fire. And shame on collegiate athletics for letting it get to this point. Now listen, we're in a capitalist society. So all these conferences are free to make their money and expand and evolve, and they've made good decisions. And the SEC and the Big Ten are where they are today because of the decisions that they made. And I don't fault them in a capitalist society for breaking through the glass ceiling. I just say, can anybody stop them from doing what they want to do? A question I asked you years ago, and a question that seems even more clear today. No, nobody can stop them. Stay tuned. We'll take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll be back inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios right after this.
This is Jim Dispenza, owner of Game Point Sports Complex. You hear the same story across any sport that kids play and any sport that adults play. There's never enough places to play. That was definitely true with volleyball, definitely true with basketball. Could be cheerleading, it could be field hockey, which is what we're seeing now. Every sport has a lack of places to play, and I think Syracuse in particular is a place where it's really bad. Despite the fact that we've got a lot of athletic talent around here, we just seem to have not enough places for people to play, and they're going to different places. They're going to Rochester, they're going to, Buffalo. They're going all different places because we don't have a place here, and I felt like that should change. This was a long project from planning all the way through execution to opening the doors. A lot of work went into it, obviously, a lot of money, a lot of resources, and the dream always was kids being in the gym, having a good time. I've always felt like sports is the most unfiltered joy that you can observe with people that people can experience, because it is fun, it is a sense of accomplishment, it's all of that wrapped into one thing, and so watching kids going up and down the court with big smiles on their faces has been just amazing experience. I'm looking forward to years to come of that same thing. We've taken the time to invest in multiple sports, and then what we're finding is the mere fact that we have a large, clean, well-lit space has opened a lot more doors for us beyond basketball, volleyball, pickleball. Now we're having some interest from cheerleading. We've got girls field hockey coming in, and then also there's quite a bit of room for spectators. We've got bleachers, we've got benches, we've got a concession lounge where people can get food and drinks. We're going to have multiple sports going at the same time, using every square inch of this place for what it was conceived for, which is basically people to come in, have a good time in the sport that they prefer. We manage each situation differently. Everybody has different ability to afford different things. Some are bringing 10, 15 people, some are just 2 people. I've had a lot of situations where it's a father shooting around with his son, it's a mother playing pickleball with her daughter or with her son, and then those situations come up and we work with people, and that's allowed us to have groups from 2 people up to 30 people and have some flexible pricing behind it. We're an organization that is here to work with the community any way we can, and I guess part of it is just making sure that we have the flexibility to put together a plan that makes sense regardless of the size of your group. So in order to book time, the best option is to go to our website, gamepointsports-syr.com. You can click from there and sign up for events, sign up for your own particular training, sign up for birthday parties, all of that.
And now a message from Myers Creek Brewing Company, with locations at their Cazenovia Farm Brewery, Syracuse Inner Harbor Tap Room, and soon-to-be Lake Placid Tap Room.
Well, I think first and foremost, the Feldmeyer family and our team are extremely passionate about what we do. We care very much about what we do. The Feldmeyer family is always investing. Our taproom management team, our brew management team, our marketing management team, and all of the team members that get after it every day, they leave it on the field. They put their heart and soul into it. I know for a fact that everyone that works at Myers Creek wants to be there, and we want them to be there. We want them to feel good about their job. And again, if you've never been to a Myers Creek, especially to the brewery, I want your eyes to open really big. I want you to see how big of a brand this is. I want you to see where we're going. The sky is the limit, and I feel very proud of that, and I'm very excited about that. When you think of designing a menu for a brewery, it's kind of open to a lot of different interpretations. You can do American, you can do Asian, you can do Italian, and you just have to find, how that meets that pub style dining experience, that gastropub vibe. And I think it's super fun for us because obviously we know that, everyone in the world's going to sell a pizza or a burger or a french fry, but what can we do to be different? And what can we do to be true to who we are? We are a brewery, a brew pub. So the flavor profiles are kind of all over the place, and I think it's super cool that we have a massive smoker at the brewery in Cazenovia, and we smoke a lot of our products. We have a delicious smoked turkey, we have barbecue ribs burgers on Sundays, from a pulled pork sandwich to a chicken wing. You go to the Inner Harbor and you go to the Kaz location and you'll find similarities in the menu, but also things that are a little different and also kind of fit those different demographics or different communities, and also hopefully just drive you to try every tap room that we have open at some point, because you get a little something different at each one. We understand how hard it is to, work every day and get after it every day, and when you're done at the end of your day, you want to go out and put your feet up in a good ambiance and good environment. So we take pride in that. We make sure that everyone knows that they're very much valued to us.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge, and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item, available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Welcome back here to the broadcast here inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. They are open for sales and service Monday through Saturday, and of course all the time online, available to you to take a look at their inventory of new and used vehicles to buy and lease at Great Lakes Honda City. GreatLakesHondaCity.com. That is GreatLakesHondaCity.com. As we spent the first part of the show here describing the conversation about the SEC and the Big Ten and, my prediction of years ago and what that prediction looks like today, I do want to, before we hop out of today's show, and like I said, I didn't know where that conversation was going to go because there's a lot of meat to the bone of that I've been thinking about over the years here. So I figured, I was like, hey, let's say the first hour, but look, it took almost the entire show speaking about the SEC and the Big Ten. I do want to get to some NFL moves that have happened here. So let's jump right into these moves happening in the NFL. And, there's a bunch that have happened, but there's definitely some that I want to key in on here, as I think that they could have huge implications for their teams this upcoming season. Let's start with the Myles Garrett move, the Myles Garrett trade, the Jared Verse and Myles Garrett. I don't want to take away from Jared Verse. Jared Verse is a guy that I covered in college. He started his career at UAlbany, then he went on to Florida State, and I interviewed him when he was at the ACC kickoff representing the Seminoles. And Jared Verse was a member of the Rams, and you look at the Rams after having Aaron Donald decide to retire, you say to yourself, okay, well, the future of this Rams team in good hands with Jared Verse, and let's see what he can do and how this team can move forward not having Aaron Donald anymore. And I would say Jared Verse and the talent that he brings to a team, he is someone that I would key in on and say to myself, okay, if that's someone I can bring in, then I would look at the opportunity of potentially bringing in a Jared Verse. But then you also look at Myles Garrett and you say, okay, look at the talent of Myles Garrett. Look at what he can do for a team and what he could potentially mean to a franchise. And then you see these two names flip homes recently here as defensive end Myles Garrett leaves the Browns in a trade with the Rams that takes Jared Verse, the outside linebacker, and puts Jared Verse on the Browns in the place of Myles Garrett. But there were other elements that were a part of this as well. In order for Myles Garrett to join a team that I already think is ripe for the opportunity of potentially winning an NFL championship in the 2026-27 season, and yes, I call it a championship because you're not supposed to say the word, I'm gonna say it without saying it. You're not supposed to say Ooper Soul on broadcasts that don't have the rights to the game itself. So that's why you don't hear me say the SB thing here on the show that often. So the NFL title game, I said coming off of Seattle winning an NFL title this past season, after the Seahawks won, I said here on the show, the two teams that I think have the best opportunity, the two teams that I believe feet to the fire going out of this past season, like before moves were being made and whatnot, I said Seattle just won an NFL championship. Right after that happened, I said if we look at next season right now, I believe the teams that have the best, the teams that I would put my money on to win an NFL title game, not that I'm a betting man, but just, for the sake of you understanding it, feet to the fire, coming out of the NFL title game, if you asked me, who in 2026-27 of the 32 NFL franchises do you believe is going to win the title for this upcoming season? I said two teams, Seattle, LA Rams. Those are the two teams that I said, both in the NFC, not in the AFC. I said, if I have to pick coming off of this Seattle championship, the two teams that I believe, or not even the two teams, any team, like who would you pick to win an NFL title? I said in 2026-27, the two teams on my mind, Seattle and the LA Rams. The Seattle Seahawks to repeat or the Los Angeles Rams to win. And then what did Vegas release after I said that? And I'm not saying that Vegas heard me. I'm just saying I said it before Vegas did put it out there. What did Vegas put out for their odds? After I made the prediction of Seattle and the Rams having the best odds of winning the 2026-27 NFL title, Vegas put out that Seattle 1, Rams 2 with the best odds to win the NFL title. So Vegas and I don't always agree, but we agree with this upcoming season. This was before this move happened. So now Myles Garrett, this all-pro defensive end, is now a part of the Los Angeles Rams. Traded from the Browns to the Rams, and the Browns got outside linebacker Jared Verse, who obviously has less tread on the tires in the NFL. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Myles Garrett. I'm just saying Verse has been in the league less time than Garrett. But what else did the Browns get? The Browns got a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 third-round pick. And I can't help but think about the SATs and think about patterns and things that you see when you're learning stuff in school. Because you look at 2027 first round, 2028 the next year, the next round, second round, 2029 the next year, the next round, third round. So it's just funny how that all kind of came to be. But you got a first-round pick from the Rams to the Browns in 2027. That means the Browns will pick, if Browns keep their pick and have the Rams pick, they will pick no less than twice in the 2027 first round of the NFL draft. Then you gain a second round pick in 2028 and a third round pick in 2029. That means all the picks you gained in trading away Myles Garrett are going to have you drafting within the first 2 days of the draft, because you got round 1 on day 1 of the NFL draft. You have round 2 and 3 on day 2, and then you have 4 through 7 on day 3. So they got a lot for this. If Jared Verse continues to trend upward and you draft well in 27, 28, 29 with these additional picks, you can help this Browns team work toward a brighter future with younger talent. And on the other side of this trade, the Rams want to win a title right now. And what did I tell you? In my opinion, in my brain, without prior thinking about it, literally just sitting here in the studio, here in the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on Wake Up Call, I just decided after the Seahawks won a title that I would give you my thoughts on who I think has the best shot of winning a title moving forward. And I said Seahawks, Rams. Now the Rams, who want to win right now, Matt Stafford's not going to be around forever. He's toward the tail end of his career. You bring in Myles Garrett in a team that I feel like was a play or two away from getting beyond Seattle and getting to the NFL title game and potentially winning an NFL title. I think whoever played the Patriots was going to win the NFL title game, because it should have been the Broncos. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Patriots this past season, because I said I thought Drake May might have a better year 2 than a year 1, and he did. He definitely is maturing well in the NFL. But Bo Nix as their quarterback at Denver, and that defense of Denver, if Bo Nix played in that game against the Patriots, then I believe Denver's going on to the title game, and they're going to make it a game. I think whether it was the Seahawks or the Rams playing the Patriots, either one of those teams is going to win. And arguably they could have won anyways, but it would have been a more difficult game, in my opinion, if either one of those teams had to play the defense of Denver and had to play a guy like Bo Nix, who knows. I mean, the Denver Broncos not only have a stout defense, but they have a never say die mentality when it comes to the end of the game, being led by Bo Nix. And I predicted Bo Nix would be drafted by the Broncos. Papa Joe and I predicted that. Papa Joe was high on Bo Nix before I was. And then prior to the draft, we talked a lot about Bo Nix, and he repeatedly brought him up on the show on Thursdays and about what he was doing at Oregon. And then I jumped on the Bo Nix world with PJ ahead of the draft and said, I believe he's going to the Broncos. I think it was 13th overall. PJ agreed with me. He went to the Broncos. And then I predicted in his rookie season a couple of years ago that Bo Nix would have the second best season of rookie quarterbacks that year, behind only Jaden Daniels of Washington. And that prediction ended up coming true that I made. I made that prior to the season, prior to camp, prior to Bo Nix even being named a starter. I said, Jaden Daniels will have the best rookie season of all the quarterbacks drafted that year. Bo Nix will have the second best. Above Caleb Williams, above everybody else. And both of those teams made it to the postseason, and I believe Washington was a step better than Denver at the time, and so to me that prediction came true. Bo Nix doesn't get to play in that game against the Patriots, which I think put the lesser team last year in the championship game. And then the Seahawks ended up winning. But I argued that the actual NFL title game was not the game we saw between the Seahawks and the Patriots. It was actually the Seahawks and the Rams for the NFC Championship was the actual NFL overall title game, because I would have loved to see those two teams play for the championship as opposed to have to play each other the step before the title game, because they both happen to be on the same side of the NFL, which is the NFC, and obviously not in the AFC. Well, now that Rams team that I already thought was right there with the Seahawks and predicted would have the second best opportunity of winning a title this year, now they have Myles Garrett. And again, to look at that trade, Myles Garrett goes to the Rams in a win-now mentality. The Browns get a future in Jared Verse in an outside linebacker role, and they get a first round, a second round, and a third round pick to help them over the next 3 drafts in the next 3 years. So I think, again, if they draft well and Jared Verse works out and Cleveland can have some patience, which Cleveland fans have had to have nothing but patience since 1999 when the team returned, if they can continue to have the thing that they've been kind of forced to have, I think they'll be okay. Let's take a look at the trade between the Eagles and the Patriots, because we talk about a Patriots team that I don't think was better than a fully healthy Denver Broncos team last year, and I stick by that. Even though I thought Drake May would have a better season, and he did, and even though I came in to last year being a big fan of the Patriots head coach, now, if any of this stuff off the air with Mike Vrabel, if any of that stuff away from football, of his extracurriculars, we'll call it, if any of that stuff is true, you're never going to see me support an adulterer, and you're never going to see me support somebody who doesn't respect themselves or their families or other people's families. So if any of that, and again, I'm saying if any of that's true, and some people might say, Dan, look at the facts, look at da-da-da. What I'm saying is I don't know him or the reporter personally. I don't know about their personal life. And I don't want somebody speaking about my personal life, speaking for me, and putting stuff out there about my private life. So I would say, and I mean, I'm not somebody out there committing adultery and cheating on people. I'm just saying I know that I treat people the way I want to be treated. And so if I don't want people speaking about me not knowing me, because you think about today's world, people speak about celebrities like they're best friends with this person, like they grew up with that person and they know all their innermost secrets and inner workings of their life, when in actuality, you're just reading the tabloids. Well, a lot of people read the tabloids about Mike Vrabel's life, and a lot of people are speaking on it. I choose to not do that because I don't know these people personally, number one. Number two, those of you that are speaking about this willy-nilly, shooting from the hip, do you understand that if any of this is true, it could ruin the lives of multiple people? It can ruin the lives of families, and it can cause a lot of people to have to go to therapy. It can cause a lot of issues that are going to have to be worked through over years with spouses, with the children, with other people that are connected to the family and friends. This is not a good situation if any of this stuff is true. So all of that has led me to sit here and go, can I really sit here and tell you I'm a fan of Mike Vrabel? Because I look at the entire person. I'm not the type of person that goes, oh, if they're a good coach, I don't care if they cheat on their wife. There's nothing about me that could ever make a statement like that and mean it. If you're not a great person to people, I don't care how many games you win. I'm not going to support people that do people dirty just because they're good at something. I don't look at life that way. If you're an egotistical, pompous jerk, but you scored the most points in this league, I don't care how many points you scored. I care about how you treat people. At the basis of everything, I tell people this all the time. At the end of your life, God does not care how much money you had, how many followers you had, if you trended on social media, if you went viral. He does not care about the power, the prestige, the followers, the money, and the things. Your currency to get into heaven is your soul. It's God taking your soul, downloading it into his computer, and taking a look at how you treated people, how you treated how you treated life, animals, people. How did you treat others, and how did you treat yourself? Your currency is your soul. So if God, to me, looks at the currency of one's soul and how you treated others and yourself, I'm not a person that's going to sit here and go, well, in this walk, like over here in their professional life, they're great, but then they're over here cheating on their wife and doing terrible things to their family. No. Like if there's a woman who like beats up her kids, but she's a really good basketball player, you're not going to find me supporting her. I can't support somebody in one place if I can't support them overall. I look at the whole picture. So I was a Mike Vrabel fan who predicted a year ahead of time that the Patriots should have hired him. I said it before the Patriots did it. And I didn't think Tennessee should ever let him go. And I thought that Mike Vrabel, being the coach of the Patriots, that the Patriots would get better. That prediction came true. Drake May having a better second year than the first year, that prediction came true. The Patriots were even better than I thought they were going to be. I thought that Vrabel and May, I thought good things would happen with Mike Vrabel there, and I thought that Drake May would have a good sophomore season in the NFL. I did not anticipate that this team would go all the way to the end line in the final game. And again, I do think it's helped by the fact that Bo Nix wasn't available for the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. But to take nothing away from the Patriots, they had a better season than I think a lot of people thought they were going to have, me included. I thought they would be better with these guys. I didn't know they would be this good. But with that being said, am I a Mike Vrabel fan right now? No. No. Because I look at the entire person. And if any of this is true, then it's going to be hard for me to rah-rah Mike Vrabel, because I'm never for people that I will never ever support cheating, lying, and it's not because it happened to me. I've just never been that way. I tell people all the time, if you're going to cheat on somebody, have the decency of calling someone and breaking up with them on your way to the house of the person that you wanted to cheat with. Like, end something before you start something. Don't have them both going at the same time, because it's not fair. You know, I would rather have somebody break up with me than not break up with me and go do something behind the scenes and just linger me around and hold on to me and the other person at the same time. That's disgusting. So I'm not going to be for that. I've digressed from my point, but that point needed to be made. Because when we talk about the Patriots and their head coach, you know, the way I think about Mike Vrabel right now could change from what I saw a couple of years ago. And it's sad, but again, Shirley as a coach, I think he's an asset. With other stuff, we'll see where that goes. And I find it funny that as I'm talking about this, Drake May is trending on X right now. So let's talk about the trade that the Patriots made. The Patriots have not had household name receivers for many years. Really, since Tom Brady left and that marriage with him and Bill Belichick ended and the run of the Patriots winning NFL titles ended, the Patriots wide receiver room was a bunch of guys that a lot of people didn't really know that well nationally. And you might be a Patriot, and I'm not trying to take away or disrespect anybody. I'm just saying there's a difference between having a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. You say Odell Beckham Jr., people know who he is, right? You don't have to be a Giants fan to know Odell Beckham Jr. You don't have to be a Chiefs or a Dolphins fan to know Tyreek Hill. You don't have to be a Niners fan to know Jerry Rice. You don't have to be a Raiders fan to know Tim Brown. But when I read off the names with the Patriots, you know, Kayshon Boutte, Matt Collins, Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm III, Jeremiah Webb, Jimmy Kibble, not Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Kibble. Those are not names that a lot of people would know, even a Patriots fan, like the average Patriots fan. Well, what did they do in a trade recently? They went and got A.J. Brown, the guy that's been brought up as potentially having a tumultuous time with the Eagles. Well, now he's not on the Eagles anymore. Wide receiver A.J. Brown was traded from the Eagles to the Patriots for a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. Think about that. It's not an immediate first-round pick, but holy crap, what a great deal there that they got. Think about that. You got a first-round pick, the Eagles did, a team that is another team in the NFC vying for an NFL title, right? Getting to the end of the line, being better than the Chiefs when nobody could beat the Chiefs. And now you got a future first-round pick within the next 2 years. That's huge. And to get that for A.J. Brown, who's been in the league for a minute, that's huge too. I mean, you think about that. A.J. Brown isn't a spring chicken. He didn't just get in the league. And I'm not taking anything away from these guys because unfortunately, you talk about a guy who's 30, 35, years. I mean, quarterbacks can make it around 40 and still be in the league, but a lot of these guys in their late 20s, early 30s, they're done playing football in the NFL. Well, a guy like A.J. Brown's been around for multiple seasons, and you got a first-round pick for him. That doesn't always happen because of the more tread on the tires argument. So the fact that the Patriots were willing to give up a 2028 first-round pick for A.J. Brown multiple years into the NFL speaks volumes of what they think of him. And they also gave up a 2027 fifth-round pick, which will be on day 3 of the draft in this upcoming year, to get A.J. Brown. And now the Patriots have a household name. Now Drake May is licking his chops because now you look at the New England Patriots and you say this was a team that was in the Final Four of the NFL. And again, if there was a healthy Bo Nix playing for the Broncos against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, I don't think the Patriots win. But that's not me saying that I don't think the Patriots are a good team that could stay good for a while. You have Drake May. You have Ramondre Stevenson. You have Travion Henderson, who I'm a big fan of, who I covered in college in the college football playoff when he won a title in the first 12-team college football playoff year, which was a couple of years ago with Ohio State. So you have Stevenson, who's serviceable, Henderson, who I think is a great young talent that could have a fantastic NFL career. I think Drake May can have a fantastic NFL career. You have A.J. Brown, who's already had fantastic in his career that's been associated with him. You got Romeo Doubs, who comes over from the Green Bay Packers, who I think is a serviceable guy. You have Hunter Henry, who's done some good things, and I think he has an uptick in this offense with Drake May and, overall leadership from Mike Vrabel. So the offense that you have with the Patriots adding in A.J. Brown makes them an even more difficult team. And I thought the Patriots had some sustainability here with Mike Vrabel, and if the team still listens to Mike Vrabel amidst all this stuff, because leadership is going to potentially be an issue here. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they can figure that out. But you got to think about this. Leadership in the locker room right now with a coach. I mean, think about the leadership of Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer doesn't take the trip back with the Jaguars on the team plane and ends up being at a restaurant, bar, or whatever, with a 20-something-year-old dancing on him that's not his wife. How long was he the coach? Urban Meyer didn't even last half a season as the Jaguars head coach. So the question becomes now, what is this going to look like? Is Mike Vrabel going to have control of his locker room? Because, again, if any of this stuff is true, I wouldn't want to play for this guy. If I'm committed to the team and I sign a contract with the team, listen, I got to do what I got to do. But I'm not really listening to that guy because to me, his morals and his values are not in the same place as mine. So you're not my leader. And that's something that could shake up this locker room, no matter how talented they are. If Mike Vrabel can't get control of his locker room with everything that's come out about his personal life, this is something that could really affect this team. And you can never, and I've said this for years on the show because I've been in them, you can never underestimate the culture of a locker room, good or bad. If Mike Vrabel has lost the locker room, this Patriots team could have all the talent in the world and not go anywhere this year. So we'll see. For the players' sake, I don't want to see, and the other coaches on the staff, I don't want to see this team, lose everything because the leader is someone that they've lost respect for. But the locker room is a really, really, really big component of any team. It does not matter how talented you are. It matters how it matters your talent, your work ethic, and the culture of your team. If you have bad culture, you could be working out every day and be the most talented person on the planet. I look at Jalen Ramsey and the Jaguars. The drama in that locker room and the lack of good culture that they had, that was a team that could have won an NFL title game. Instead, Jalen Ramsey ran his mouth and they got run out of the playoffs. And I'm not saying it's just Jalen Ramsey. There were other problems in that locker room, but Jalen Ramsey was the giant fire starter in that locker room. And not like a light a fire under your butt to help the team cook, talking about like burn the house down type of fire that Jalen Ramsey was to the Jaguars, which is why they needed to get rid of him, and they did. So now A.J. Brown goes to the Patriots, and again, the Patriots are not simply an NFL team that were talented that added talent. They're a team that was talented that added talent amidst drama with their head coach. So it's almost like you think about a scallop, right? A scallop that was cooked pretty well, but now the scallop is cooked better, but it's wrapped in bacon, and the bacon that it's wrapped in isn't cooked. So you got a good scallop, but the bacon's not right. And that the X factor of the Patriots season is not adding A.J. Brown. It's what's going to happen with Mike Vrabel and his leadership of this team. But I think it was a great move by the Patriots. If none of this stuff was going on with Mike Vrabel, then I would look at this move to the Patriots with A.J. Brown and say, this is a team that can win an NFL title. But this is a move being made along with drama happening at the same time. And not that every team doesn't have drama somewhere, because, you know, the more people you have in a room, the higher the probability that somebody's going to be dramatic. And there's 53 men on this roster. And right now there's more than 53 because you're heading into camp in a little bit here, and you're going to be at almost 100, and then you'll break it down to 70 plus, and then you'll get down to 53 and then put some guys on your practice squad. I think this is a great move for the Patriots to finally have a number one outright wide receiver. But can their culture get past everything that's happened away from football? Which is something out of the control of A.J. Brown being added to the team. The other move that I thought was a joke, which is why I didn't say anything about it when it happened, because it's something that you feel like is a rumor. And I mean, people already lie in the media because they put out clickbait. And so they put out a bunch of outlandish, ridiculous stuff that has no basis in reality, just so you'll click on their stuff. And so when I saw this, I was like, is this one of those things? Then you add in artificial intelligence and all the lies that have been put out there. I don't know what artificial intelligence is running these pages and groups for Syracuse athletics, like the sports, not Syracuse athletics, like the school itself, but what these like fan-made groups or whatever that are posing as media companies that are putting out these outlandish, ridiculous things. I'm sitting here going like, can they get sued for this? Because there's like no reality to it, saying Fran Brown is doing this and this guy said this about this player. Like, I've had to, I don't even know how they find me, I guess because I post about Syracuse a lot, but I'll go on Facebook and I'll have these outlandish, ridiculous stories that I don't even have to read half of it to know it's not true. And they're popping up more and more and more in this AI world. So you take people lie in general to the media lies in order to get clicks, to now artificial intelligence might not even know that it's lying. It's just doing stuff. So or maybe it does know because it's supposed to be intelligent. So you look at all those things going on in today's world, and I see Odell Beckham Jr. as a giant again, and I'm like, okay, is this AI? Is this clickbait? Is it both? And so I ignored it. I actually ignored it for a little while. You know, I was like, I'm gonna kind of like let this go throughout the day and see what happens. But the Giants signing Odell Beckham Jr., just to me, this could be a really, really great thing. It could be one of the best comeback stories in the history of the NFL, but it depends on who Odell plans on being. It depends on what he's going to bring to this team and how he's going to, what Odell are they getting? Are they getting dramatic, fire starter in a bad way, Odell Beckham Jr., or are they getting appreciative, thankful, grateful, I'm going to go out here and do what I know I can do, Odell Beckham Jr.? Because keep in mind, Odell came into the NFL in 2014 and with the Giants. And he's with the Giants in 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. 2019, he started his run with the Cleveland Browns, and he was with the Browns for 19, the COVID year of 20, and in 21, he spent part of his time with the Browns. Then he went to the Rams, and then he was out of football, nothing in 22. In 23, he returned to the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens for 14 games, where he had over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns receiving. And then in 2024, he played 9 games for the Miami Dolphins, but in those 9 games, only caught 9 balls and was targeted 18 times. So on average, targeted twice a game, catching half of them. And he didn't play last year. So you look at Odell and you say, young wide receiver, fantastic one-handed catch, a guy who seemingly got better and better and then had some antics that went along with him being on the field. And you say, okay, he was working with the Giants, but after a few seasons, the Giants let go of him and he goes to Cleveland and he did okay. And then you go to the Rams in the hopes of, going and winning a championship, and then you're out of the NFL. And then you come back in and then you're out again. So this is not the first time that he did not play for a team in an entire season. This is the second time that Odell is making a return to the NFL. From 2021 to 2023, there was a break in between. And from 2024 to 2026, there was a break. But now the Giants have signed him. So who do the Giants have now? They have young Malik Neighbors, who's coming off an injury, which if he's healthy, this Giants team is dangerous. You got Darius Slayton, who could be having an uptick. You got Darnell Mooney out of Tulane, who you're hoping can get something going here. He's played for a couple different teams, Chicago and Atlanta, and things just haven't worked out. Calvin Austin III, who I covered out of Memphis, he's bounced around a little bit. Malachi Fields is on this team. Speaking of the New York Giants, and he is a rookie out of Notre Dame. Then you have Isaiah Hodgins, who had some good moments as a young receiver, and Jalen Hyatt, who's been on the team for a little bit. Braxton Berrios, who I covered when he was playing college ball at Miami. Bo Collins, who I covered when he was playing college ball at Notre Dame. He is the nephew of Syracuse defensive line alum Deion Goggins. And then they have Xavier Gipson, who came from the Jets, who didn't have to change his home because the Jets and the Giants both play at MetLife. So you go from a Jet to a Giant, you're changing your locker, but outside of that, home is home. So you got Ryan Miller, Gunnar Olszewski, who I also covered collegiately because I cover, I thought Gunnar Olszewski. Oh, I was wrong here. Gunnar Olszewski. In my brain, I don't know why I always think that. I always think Gunnar Olszewski went to North Carolina, but he went to Bemidji State. In my brain, he was a North Carolina guy. I don't know why I always think that when I think of Gunnar. Yeah. Well, let's see here. Yeah, he went to Bemidji State. I don't know why when I see Gunnar, I'm always thinking North Carolina. So my bad on that. And then you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who's bounced around the NFL. The question was, when Antonio Brown and the Steelers ended their marriage, could Juju be the number one guy? In my opinion, the answer was no. And then he has bounced around and, is a Kansas City Chief, and now he's a New York Giant, and Odell Beckham Jr. is back. So when you look at this very, very long list of wide receivers going into camp, I would imagine that the receivers that will remain on the roster for the Giants are arguably Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Odell Beckham Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, and maybe a Darnell Mooney. They drafted Malachi Fields, so I imagine he's going to stick around. But yeah, I mean, I would say Neighbors, Slayton, Beckham, Juju. There's 4 right there. Maybe Isaiah Hodgins is 5. and then a Mooney and a Fields 6 and 7. And maybe the other guys get the opportunity to go elsewhere. We'll see. Obviously hoping the best for everybody, because I always want everyone to find a home. And as long as you're not out there purposely trying to hurt anybody, I want you to live your dreams and live them beyond your wildest. So listen, this is interesting for the Giants, because the Giants have Jackson Dart, and I'm going to say this right now, and I don't care what people think, but I'm going to say it right now because I don't need to be quiet about this. We live in a free country, and the people that complain about freedom of speech and they have a right to it also tell people to shut up when they disagree with those people. You cannot talk about freedom of speech for yourself and then try to take someone's freedom of speech. You cannot talk about your freedom and then try to enslave somebody else. I don't care who someone supports as a president or a leader. If you want to cancel Jackson Dart, I'm going to say a couple things. 1, you're not working hard in your life if you have time to do it. 2, you're not providing anything meaningful to society right now. 3, you're a hypocrite. 4, freedom of speech is freedom of speech for everybody in this country. And 5, who cares? Like, this is where we're at now. If you go to the 4th of July celebration to celebrate America and its 250th anniversary, because Donald Trump's the president, anybody that goes and supports America on America's birthday is going to be canceled, because you can't stand next to Donald Trump. I'm sorry. Who was trying to cancel people for standing next to Joe Biden? Because the media hates Donald Trump by and large, they are treating this president different than the other presidents. And I'm not saying I'm over here or over there. I don't think this country needs to be polarized in either direction. And the more we polarize ourselves, the more this country is going to hell in a handbasket. I know there's people watch and listen that are liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, independent, don't vote, do vote, vehemently believe in something, nonchalantly believe in something, care about a few things. There's some people that are middle of the road, moderate. So I'm not here to say that any one of you is wrong for believing in what you believe in. As long as you're not hurting people and you're being moral and kind, and I would hope that God is your compass, I'm good with it, right? Here's the thing. The fact that Jackson Dart introduced the president, if he was introducing Kamala Harris, would the media have done anything but glorify him? That's what I want you to think about. The media, by and large, is in the pocket of one party. If he introduced Kamala Harris, he would be a national hero. He introduced Donald Trump, and people were expecting him to apologize. I'm going to tell you this right now. If Donald Trump called me up and invited me to the White House, I would go. Because 1, when have I ever been invited to the White House by a president? 2, when will it ever happen again? Whether I agree with you or not, why would I not go? If Joe Biden invited me to the White House, I'm going. If Donald Trump invites me to the White House, I'm going. The fact that this man has done anything polarizing to bother you has shown me that you have no life. No life. And you are providing nothing to society right now of merit. People who scream at people for having beliefs different than theirs are some of the most massive hypocrites that exist on this planet. The people that scream the loudest for someone to shut up are also the people that demand to be heard. You cannot tell someone to shut up and then demand that they listen to you. If you scream in my face because you and I are different, and then you demand that I sit there and don't scream in your face, how do you not hear yourself and how stupid that sounds? So Jackson Dart, support who you want to support, do what you want to do, live how you want to live. Same thing for Vanilla Ice. There is no person that should be canceled for celebrating America, going to an inauguration or a State of the Union or any type of presidential speech. It is an honor to be invited to the White House with any president at any time. Okay? Unless the guy was killing babies, raping people, and like blowing up the planet, if If we had a president snorting cocaine and cheating on his wife, oh, I'm sorry, did we not have a president who was cheating on his wife? And when did the media say it was bad to go visit him at the White House? So we support an adulterer, but we can't support America's birthday? That doesn't make any sense. And again, I'm not talking about parties. I'm talking about reality. Okay? People joke about presidents that cheat on their wives. But then Jackson Dart can't shake the hand of a president and introduce him. So any Giant fan that's not a Giant fan because of Jackson Dart's politics, I really hope that you pray to God today, you hear God, and you hear how ridiculous that sounds. Unless you want to live in a country where your rights are taken away unless you agree with the majority, which other countries take your rights away. Other countries do what they want to do. If you don't agree with the supreme leader of another country, you might not show up the next day to work or with your family. I find it hilarious that we scream in this country to be heard and then tell other people to shut up when they don't agree with us. We want everyone to agree with us, and if they don't, we hate them. And then if we change our mind tomorrow, you're supposed to change your mind with us. These are all signs of like disorders to me. You have a mental issue if you are treating people, if you're part of the cancel culture, you have a mental issue. There's something wrong with you. There is. And I'm not doing that to attack you. I'm telling you, there is something medically wrong with human beings that seek to ruin the lives of other people on a daily basis. It's called a bully. It's called abuse. And they're typically the first people to scream about being bullied and abused, which is hilarious. So I'm going to say, regardless of political party, if Trump was a Democrat and Jackson Dart introduced him, I would have no problem. If Trump's a Republican and Jackson Dart introduced him, and I don't have a problem. I like Jackson Dart more today than I did yesterday. Because anybody who sticks up for what they believe in, regardless of how people react to them, they got balls. They got thick skin. They got confidence. I respect that. Jackson Dart didn't hurt anybody by what he did. So if you boo him because of his politics, go live in another country. See how the politics are in that country. And then come back here. Go live in the Middle East. Not even for a year. Go live in the Middle East for 6 months. Then come back and talk to me about freedom of whatever here. It's funny how people take advantage of their environment, complain about their environment, but refuse to go live somewhere else where the environment actually isn't good. It's always nice to sit on a golden throne surrounded by money, prosperity, peace, comfort, and shelter. But would you be sitting the same way you're sitting right now if you lived in a place where you're living in a shack with no protection, little money, very little power, no say, less freedom? Could you sit there as cush as you sit right now? So I would say to anybody, support who you want to support, love who you want to love. Okay? As long as you're being a good person, you got nothing to apologize for. If you are leading with a pure heart and good intentions, you don't have any apologies to make. And the fact that we live in a society where total strangers are screaming at people for shaking hands with somebody and introducing someone. What if Donald Trump was a family friend of mine, right? What if I knew him well before he was known to the world, well before he became president, and he called me up and he said, Dan, I've been friends with your parents for 40 years, and I love what you're doing with your company. I'm a business owner, you're a business owner, and I want to spotlight the work that you've done because I really think it's incredible, and I think the world needs to see what a hardworking person looks like building something from the ground up. Why would I say anything other than yes? Because I got to live in fear that half the country is not going to listen to my show if this guy shakes my hand and introduces me? He's giving me an opportunity to speak about my life. He's respecting me. I don't agree with everything that Trump does, Biden does, Kamala Harris does, Bill Clinton did, George Bush. I don't agree 100% with any of them. None of them are God. I don't worship people. I don't worship things. I don't worship places. There is only one anything that I get down on my knees for and thank for my life, and that is God, the one and only, the Alpha and Omega, the end-all be-all, the OG of OGs. So, as we're talking about the Giants here today, let me make something clear. Keep your politics out of it, and Jackson Dart is allowed to be himself. Unless you want someone to take your freedom away and tell you how to live your life, scream at you, threaten you, try to cancel you, and try to make your life a living hell. Unless you want to be done to you what you're doing to him, stop. It's amazing how God said, if you forgot everything else, remember the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. Love one another as I have loved you. That has got to be the simplest form of advice. It's one sentence. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Talk to other people the way you want to be talked to. Talk about other people the way you want to be spoken about. So unless you want somebody to attack you for your beliefs and try and make your life a living hell, stop doing it to somebody else. So, I got friends on all different ends of the spectrum and coin. And when I say spectrum, I'm saying all different walks of life, different jobs, different this, different that. I have friends that are liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, vote, don't vote, moderate, don't care, do care. You want to know why I have all those friends? Because I allow people to be who they are, and I look at the content of their character, which Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. And I treat people the way I want to be treated, and if I don't, I check myself. So if Jackson Dart and I didn't agree on politics, why am I going to hate the guy? Is he murdering someone? Is he raping someone? Did he burglarize someone? Did he terrorize someone? No? Well, then why do I have a problem with him? He's allowed to have his thoughts and his feelings and his beliefs just as much as I am. If I don't want somebody to take away my ability to be free, why would I take away yours? It is something that a lot of people do not want to look at themselves in the mirror and answer the question of these days. If someone did to you what you're doing to them, how would you feel? And if you have any bit of a heart and you're doing bad things, you would say, wow, Dan, I really wouldn't like what I'm doing to be done to me. And I would say, then probably stop doing it. Because this world has a way of course correcting. God has a way of showing you what you do and what you say. It always comes back around. Remember that. How you treat people is eventually how you will be treated. Unless you course correct, fix yourself, repent, and do differently, you are bound to get what you give. And the fact that we got to politicize football is insane. Because when I look at this Giants team right now, I look at Jackson Dart, Cam Scattaboo, who I covered in college in the college football playoff, Arizona State, Tyrone Tracy Jr., who they said could be like a hybrid guy going into last year, a healthy Malik Neighbors, a Darius Slayton, who I think can trend upward with Jackson Dart, a Darnell Mooney, Kelvin Austin III, maybe those guys can trend upward, and Isaiah Hodgins. Odell Beckham Jr.'s return, Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought in Isaiah Likely, so now fantasy football fans can be happy that you don't have listen, to the Baltimore Ravens, in reality, it was fantastic. But to a fantasy owner, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely being on the same team, they canceled each other out, especially this past year. So now that Isaiah Likely is on the Giants, that's good. Theo Johnson was already good on the Giants. Chris Manhertz can be a good blocking tight end who used to be on the Jaguars. So you have all of that. And then you got Francis C.C. Mauigoa, who I interviewed numerous times in my coverage of him and the Miami Hurricanes, who got drafted by the team in the first round, and he could be playing interior guard for them on the offensive line. Then you got the DJ Readers and the Arvell Reeses and Tremaine Edmonds and Kayvon Thibodeau's and Abdul Carter's and Greg Newsome II and Brian Burns and so on and so forth on your defensive side. This Giants team may very well be a playoff team. Because I don't know how much better the Cowboys got. And I know the Eagles might be in a place of purgatory where they might be riding the, are we a playoff team, are we not a playoff team? And if Jaden Daniels is healthy and Terry McLaurin's healthy and Washington's defense gets better and their running game can get going, there's a lot of ifs there. But look at this right now. If Dallas doesn't really trend higher or lower and kind of just stays that mid-range team, and Philadelphia drops a little bit, the Giants could win this division. And based on what they have on their team and the level of talent and the guys that I watched and I covered in college now on this roster, if they translate well, continue to translate well, and we see an uptick of this offense that we already saw with Jackson Dart last year when he wasn't the starter from day one, we could be watching a Giants team make the playoffs. And whether you like it or not, the Giants and the Knicks could both be rocking the New York City metropolitan area. How crazy would that be? Let's take our final step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. There's a bunch of moves that have been made, could be made, but I think those were the three biggest ones. The Myles Garrett, Jared Verse trade, the A.J. Brown to the Patriots from the Eagles trade, and the re-signing of Odell Beckham Jr. years after he was a New York Giant. This is his return, first time as a New York Giant in 8 years, almost a decade. From 2018 to 2026, Odell Beckham Jr., I thought it was AI, I thought it was a joke, but it ends up being true. Odell Beckham Jr.'s back in MetLife. And could this mean more life? I got a really good feeling about Odell Beckham Jr. and this offense and Jackson Dart. I already thought Jackson Dart was doing better here. And I told you all, when John Harbaugh was, parted ways with the Ravens, I thought that was a mistake for Baltimore. And I said, the Giants automatically get better with John Harbaugh as their head coach. And you got Scadaboo, and you got Neighbors, and you got Theo Johnson, and you got Isaiah Likely, who comes over with Harbaugh from the Ravens. You got Jackson Dart. Now you bring back Odell Beckham Jr. You got a bunch of other guys that I think are young enough in the league and hopefully can catch on with this team, like a Kelvin Austin III, like a Darnell Mooney, like Darius Slayton, who was drafted by the team. Can he trend upward? Can he continue to grow? Isaiah Hodgins, same thing. This New York Giants team continues to make decisions in the right direction. Been a long time, but they're making moves in the right direction. Jackson Dart was in the right direction. John Harbaugh was the right direction. I think Odell Beckham Jr. coming back to the Giants is the right direction. And we're kind of spoiled because it's like a TV show. This is like having a TV show that you loved as a kid get canceled and then come back years later and you're like, oh my gosh, there's new episodes. So hopefully Odell Beckham Jr. back to the Giants is even better than Boy Meets World to Girl Meets World to patch some things up and show us what the rest of the story could look like. With that being said, we'll take our final step inside of the Great Lakes inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. We'll take our final step aside, and we will be back to wrap up the show right after this.
Avicoli's restaurant, located on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, has been serving our community for decades. Your place to go for home cooking on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road is just minutes from Liverpool High School. And every single month, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is on site, on location, with Liverpool sports, student athletes, coaches, and administration telling their stories throughout the year. We look forward to seeing you on site at Avicoli's for their casual pizza side, their fine dining, as well as their bar. And of course, you can order online at myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. For takeout, delivery, and catering, call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. Come on in to the neighborhood spot, Avicoli's, open 7 days a week. in Liverpool, New York. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is your home away from home for your furry-loving friends. Open 7 days a week with drop-off and pickup times in the morning and later on in the day and early evening. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is the spot to trust with your dog for short and long-term stays. Call 315-299-4013 for more information. That's 315-299-4013 and go to k9campground.com as well. That's K9, ground.com, where you will find all of the information on their different cabins, which include the classic cabin, executive cabin, grand cabin, and luxury cabin. K9 Campground Dog Boarding, where your dog will have indoor and outdoor areas as well as their own private cabin for any size, any breed, as well as dogs with different needs. Dog parents and dogs alike choose K9 Campground Dog Boarding. Isn't that right, Lily?
Hello, this is Dylan Husted, the owner of the Baked Potato Express. We do mostly big festivals or big corporate like private events. Typically just big festivals such as like Taste of Syracuse, Food Truck Battle, Battle of the Wings. I do the State Fair. They're ordering from a fresh food truck that is making real food and happy to make it and wants them to enjoy every bite. We season every potato before they go in the oven, and then they bake for an hour, and when they come out, we season them again after we cut them. We use real butter, real cheese, real ingredients, so it's all really good food and people love it. We have a lot of returning customers and regulars that we see very often. The customers really make a big impact, and this is a big food truck community. The events here are super busy. It's like in my blood. I like building things and creating stuff that people love, and me and my friends are the ones that run the truck, so it's kind of, we keep it's a tight circle in there, and we have like a family sort of oriented truck, and it's a lot of fun, and we have a good time doing it, and people love our food, so it ends up making it well for everybody. You can contact the Baked Potato Express at thebakedpotatoexpress@gmail.com or the Baked Potato Express on Instagram or TikTok. We are very happy to be partnered up with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora as the exclusive sponsor of the Annoying Moment of the Week. And be sure to try DT's Baked Potato creation at all of our food trucks. The Baked Potato Express. Let's get baked.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Hi, this is Gina Husted. I'm part owner of Skippy's Ice Cream. The other half is my better half, Don Husted Jr. When somebody comes up to the truck and it's a family, it's nice that the older generation is nostalgic and they can tell the younger generation, back in my day, we used to have the truck around our neighborhood. So now you're lucky because the truck can come to your party, and you're lucky that this truck is at a festival and you're getting to buy the ice cream. And basically we're ice cream that comes to you now, specifically comes to you, not for you waiting for us, we're coming to you. We will do neighborhoods if you have a block party. We do birthdays, we do anniversaries, we do celebrations of life, we do wedding showers, we do festivals, we'll do corporate events, we have a lot of corporate picnics, we have family reunions, so it's a whole wide range of whatever party you have, we'd love to be at. We're so appreciative of the community, always coming up to us at festivals and calling us to have different events. We have a lot of return customers. We always have people coming up to our truck. We're always there for the community. We always try to give back to different organizations and fundraisers, and so I think the community sees that. We like to give back to them. This is where we live. This is where we were raised. This is where our kids were raised. So the community is very special to us. I mean, obviously we've lived here our whole lives. So it means a lot that they come up to our truck and that they choose us because we're just there to please the community and deal with as many people as we can in this community, because this is, like I said, where we were born and raised. If you'd like to get in touch with Skippy's Ice Cream and have us at your next event, I would suggest using our email, skipthecake, SKIPTHECAKE, skipthecake@gmail.com. That's the fastest way to get a hold of us. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us, and that's going to get the fastest response from us. If you choose to call, if you don't have an email, then you can call 315-456-9750, and we'll be glad to get back to you as soon as we can. Skippy's Ice Cream, the original ice cream truck.
Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McInerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Bryan and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Bryan and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Life gets busy, and sometimes that means us running around. So Canine Camp Dog Daycare offers you an opportunity to give your dog a place to stay while you take care of what you need to throughout the day. Canine Camp Dog Daycare is located on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, New York. You can see it from the highway, and it's just off of Erie Boulevard across from BJ's Wholesale Club. Call 315-437-7110. That's 315-437-7110 to schedule an appointment to bring your dog in and tour the facility. Appointments are Monday through Thursday after 6:30, where you and your dog can see everything that Canine Camp Dog Daycare has to offer, including a self-serve dog wash and a retail store filled with all of your dog's wants and needs, including food, treats, harnesses, leashes, and more, making Canine Camp Dog Daycare your one-stop shop for your furry-loving friend. Right, Lily? In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
Hi, this is Chris Rauda.
And Colleen Rakowski from Gray's Craze of Clay.
It's a fun, innovative, upscale catering solution. We've turned eating into a whole new experience. Each of our boards is packed with delicious mix of artisan cheeses. We use premium cured meats, fresh fruits, nuts, and all of the sweet touches that really bring out the best in every perfect bite.
We offer something as small as a grab and go that feeds 1, maybe 2 people, to our large board that can serve anywhere up to 25, 28 people. So we have the ability to really meet and hopefully exceed all of our customers' expectations when it comes to the different varieties of things that we have.
Charcuterie boards or boxes are healthy, fresh, delicious. They're made to order. We're baking the breads here daily. We're baking the cookies here daily. All of our dips are homemade, made in-house. All of our spreads are all made in-house.
When you open that board or box that we have delivered or you have picked up, we want you to know that it was made with care and designed to completely elevate your event, celebration, or meeting.
We've catered parties and events for up to 300 people. So if you're walking in to grab something for lunch or something for date night or movie night, that's great too. Our events go from you eating in the car on the way home to a catering event in a rehearsal dinner or cocktail hour or party.
When we do, again, know what the event is, specifically for a wedding, we like to schedule tastings so the bride and groom can come in and see what we have to offer, and we can then, as we talk, to try to understand what they're looking for, what the venue's like. We do like to have that one-on-one interaction when it comes to catering bigger events.
Our address is 4599 State Route 31, Suite 5, in Clay, New York. We're on the corner of Route 31 and Henry Clay at Clay Marketplace.
You can order on the phone by calling area code 315-409-4171 or online at grayscraze.com/clay-ny. Come visit us at Gray's Craze of Clay, New York,
where we want you to celebrate everything.
Hey everybody, this is Rockney Roberts from Willow Rock Brewing Company. We are here in Cicero at the Willow Rock Pizza Pub.
And I'm Kevin Williams, also from Willow Rock Brewing Company. Happy to be here and happy to be partnering with CNS and Dan Tortora.
You want some place where you can feel comfortable and hopefully ingratiate yourself with the community. And Kevin, he grew up right down the road from here. I grew up in Brewerton, so not too far away. We know the area, we know the people, they're great, and we were just really excited to be able to come to the area.
Yeah, and having the opportunity to meet some of these coaches, some of the people in general already, and seeing the CNS colors kind of around, and already partnering on a smaller level with individual teams really made this make sense to us to really formalize kind of a partnership with the school and get this rolling.
Willow Rock to me has always been about high quality beverages, high quality experiences, and now high quality food in our pizza pub. That was something new for us when we came to Cicero. Right from the drop, we knew we were going to have a focus on the highest quality food to go with our high quality beer. At the Willow Rock Pizza Pub, you're getting high quality, hand cut, top notch ingredients. We're open for lunch. That's a really important thing for us, is to be able to get that person in here like, hey, you only got 30 minutes for lunch, but we're gonna have something for you that you can get quickly and available to everybody.
Yeah, we wanted something that was just a little bit outside the box, a little bit outside of comfort zone, but still something that you could rely on to be consistent and easy to look at and easy to be like, oh, I can see myself eating this. I can see myself wanting to have that more than once. Eating a whole pizza like our beef on weck pizza, I've never seen one anywhere. It's just a great ideas, great inspiration across the board. We're their spot to stop. We're their friendly neighborhood watering hole, as well as pizza place and place to stop for a restaurant. Not just beer drinkers here. We've got wines, we got cocktails, we got non-alcoholic stuff for the kids.
The location is more important today than it ever has been before, and we're lucky enough to be here in Cicero. The Willow Rock Pizza Pub is a place where you can bring your family. You can come in, you can grab a soda, you can relax. You can come after a game, before a game. your parents, your grandparents. Our goal is to make sure that everyone's comfortable here. We want students, we want athletes, we want your coaches. It's going to be a good time. So come here, enjoy the high quality food, high quality beverage that we're going to offer to everybody. And hey, go North Stars.
We're so happy to have the North Stars. We are very much a kid-friendly establishment. We have tons of space outside for everybody to be playing outside, as well as listening to live music, enjoying some pizza.
The Willow Rock Pizza Pub is open 6 days a week here in Cicero. That is Tuesday through Sunday. And our website is willowrockbrew.com, and our socials are at Willow Rock Brew. So find us on the net, find us in person. We'll see you soon.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. Get closer to the team and the players that you love, as well as the games you love to play and the characters that you love in those games, by going to GG Cards and Breaks. It doesn't matter if you're 9, 29, 59, 89. However old you are, your big kid spirit. Listen, the best adults never forgot their kid spirit and have always fanned that flame. So go there with generations to GG Cards and Breaks. There is nothing like having memories with my mom and my dad, my grandmothers, going and getting sports cards, going and being immersed in that world and connected to it. I love it. I see it with GG Cards and Breaks all the time, seeing young kids in there with their moms and their dads, and just families there, friends there with each other, and friendships that are made from being at GG Cards and Breaks, standing next to a stranger, and now all of a sudden, a couple trade nights later, they're one of your good friends. GG Cards and Breaks does so much more than sell cards. They bring the community together. So make sure you head out there and support them today at 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. They are open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6, and on Sundays from 10 to 5. Big time shout out to Chick-fil-A in DeWitt. Chick-fil-A in DeWitt about to unveil a new sandwich, a new seasonal favorite coming on its way. The Jalapeno Ranch Club Chicken Sandwich has been the one that we've been seeing here most recently, but something new is on its way. In that nostalgia world, the strawberry hibiscus beverages, the new frosted beverages to go along with the nuggets, the original chicken, the spicy chicken, and the grilled chicken sandwiches that you love, as well as their mac and cheese, and of course those fantastic shakes. Chick-fil-A in DeWitt on the corner of Bridge Street and Erie Boulevard, led by Megan Sorber, is waiting to hang out with you today, to serve you, and to show you what it means to truly say, "It's my pleasure." So make sure you head out to Chick-fil-A in DeWitt today. You can't miss it. Giant brick building, double drive-through, massive parking lot, and of course you could dine in and have plenty of space for you and the kids and your families. Go on a date, go with your friends to Chick-fil-A in DeWitt today on the corner of Bridge Street and Erie Boulevard. We look forward to seeing you there. With that being said, I want to thank you for tuning in on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /wakeupcalldt, as well as on wakeupcalldt.mixlr.com. Thank you for being a part of the show. here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And of course, you can be up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time and beyond, as it's almost noon today. Of course, you can also find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow with us on those channels so you never miss when the next broadcast is added to our archives. A big time shout out to our wonderful partners in Central and Upstate New York. Make sure to support those that support us. Great Lakes Honda City, the Wildcat Sports Pub, and they support you because they've made our community tremendous. I feel very spoiled to work with these amazing businesses. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, simply known as Ma and Pa's. You can go and visit them on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And you can also visit them if you don't live in the area. You can go to maandpaspopcorn.com and get a great taste sent to your home today. Myers Creek with 2 locations, one on the countryside on 33 Rippleton Road in Cazenovia, the other in the Syracuse Inner Harbor right by the aquarium that's being built, 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse. The Baked Potato Express, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Skippy's Ice Cream, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Brian's Landing, Gray's Craze of Clay, New York, Avicoli's, Game Point Sports Complex, Chick-fil-A in DeWitt, Willow Rock Pizza Pub and the Willow Rock Brewing Company, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Mother's Cupboard, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Binghamton University Bearcats. You will find your Bearcats every single Tuesday during Bearcat time at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The Bearcats are hanging out with you, student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni here telling their stories and the greater story of the Binghamton family. We have had fantastic conversations about so many different topics in and out of the world of sports right here with the Binghamton University Bearcats. You could find it all by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, find the Binghamton playlist, and know that your Bearcats are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com. And of course, as always, go Bearcats. With that being said here on the show, I want to thank you for joining us for conversation on the future of the SEC and the Big Ten, future of the NCAA, and will we see part of the autonomy group or all of the autonomy group break away? And also talking about the NFL and the fact that freedom of speech is for everyone, not some people or just the people you agree with. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I say, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. You'll find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. And you will see me tonight on site, on location, with the boxer himself, Bryce Mills, my little brother, hanging out with me today, June 3rd, 6 p.m., Avicoli's. Come out and see us and see Bryce and wish him the best and just shake his hand, meet him, get an autograph, see what's up with Mr. Mills just a few weeks before his upcoming fight that will be on June 27th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. He told me years ago that fighting in that New York City area is a dream of his and would be amazing. And look at where this young man is going to be. Already, he's had a fantastic career, and as young as he is, and as much as he's already had under his belt, he gets to be in Brooklyn, New York in just a few weeks. This is incredible. It shows that God is great, and it shows that God looks after those that lean into him, believe in him, and work hard and give their life to the big guy himself, the Lord himself. So shout out to Bryce Mills, shout out to his faith, shout out to his hard work, dedication, determination, his team, his family, and to all of you supporters. Come out and see us tonight on location, on site at the Avicoli's restaurant on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, June 3rd, 6 p.m. Bryce Mills, come and meet the boxer before his upcoming fight. We look forward to seeing you there, and God bless you all. Have a fantastic day. Be kind to each other, and just treat other people the way you want to be treated.